Uh, this is Abba Leiter, the son of Rabbi Zev Wolf Leiter, discussing his life and career and contributions to the Jewish people, not only in the scholarly sense, but also how he was able to contribute to the Jewish people as a whole, to their maintaining their situation in a land that was not meant for us to stay in, okay? It was a stop on the way. Rabbi Leiter was a very ardent devotee of Leiter-Shelsheles, as many of the Hasidim, Gedolei Yisrael, who were Hasidim of Chortkiv, Reb David Moshe, who was the fifth son of the Rizhiner. We'll discuss that in detail another time. Right now, I would like to talk to you about the following. Right around the early 40s, around 41, 42, the Jewish world was being engulfed by the terrible news that was gradually coming out, bit by bit, until it became a torrent, and that is known as the Holocaust. Perhaps the greatest calamity that has ever taken place to the Jewish people. In fact, I heard from Rabbi Hirschsprung that it was even greater than the calamity of 2,000 years ago. Rabbi Hirschsprung of Canada, okay? A tremendous, tremendous Goyen who was in Europe, who studied in Lublin, etc., who knew Europe inside and out, and whose grandfather, the Rabbi of Dukla, the Leiter-Shelsheles was a sefer that we printed, not we printed, that was printed, and he used to go through 300 folios, 300 blot of Gemara every single Shabbos Baal Peh. So Rabbi, how should we say, from Canada, Rabbi Hirschsprung saw with his own eyes what kind of people you had in Europe. He was, unfortunately, that is, the Rabbi of Dukla, who was killed in the Holocaust. Okay. Leiter-Shelsheles was a tremendous, tremendous Goyen, and the grandfather who taught Rabbi Hirschsprung. At that point in time, Rabbi Leiter made a Maimonides Institute in Pittsburgh to carry on a new facet of his work, which he had always dreamt of doing, working on the classics of the Jewish people so that it should remain for generations. This is the Maimonides Institute of Rabbi Wolf Leiter. Rabbi Wolf Leiter's Maimonides Institute. Naturally, you had to have a committee of sponsors, local people, but you also have world-renowned authorities to whom people would show a certain respect and acknowledge, that they're a part of something very special, because they could see Rabbi Leiter himself was acknowledged as a part of this elite, super elite group of scholars in the world, no matter whether they were Orthodox, conservative, or Reform. The motto of the Institute, that tomorrow will share in yesterday's wisdom. Yesterday's wisdom was being blotted out. We didn't have, the Rabbi of Dukla, the grandfather of Rabbi Hirschsprung anymore. We didn't have many, many, many tremendous scholars and Rabbanim anymore that were being wiped out wholesale by the armada of Hitler. It is here where he wanted to start a new beginning, and he reached out, as he did always, to others who were great in scholarship, regardless of their persuasion. These are the world-renowned authorities, if you can see them, that gave their approbation, their haskama, to the Maimonides Institute of Rabbi Wolfleiter and to its purpose and to its aims and goals. Professor Louis Ginsberg of the JTS Seminary, Jewish Theological, known at that time as the greatest living Hebraic authority. Considering your wide rabbinic learning and general erudition, I do not know of any scholar better fitted for this kind of work. Next, Professor Saul Lieberman of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. I am quite confident that your unusual Talmudic learning, as well as your modern approach to the edition of rabbinic works, is the best guarantee for your undertaking. And that's followed by Professor Alexander Marx, a renowned Jewish historian, also from JTS, and then followed by Professor Abraham Heschel of Hebrew Union College at that time, the conservative seminary, the Reform Seminary in Cincinnati. At that time, Rabbi Heschel had come over fleeing from Europe, and the first place he could set foot was at the Hebrew Union College, which was in Cincinnati. Later, he would move over to JTS, which was a little bit more comfortable for him. But he was a renowned man. He marched in many civil rights marches together with Martin Luther King, a great, great person. Professor Boaz Cohen of the Jewish Theological Seminary. Professor Cohen, as we'll get to it hopefully later on, had a tremendous amount of correspondence with my father, Rabbi Leiter. He provided whatever information that he could on first editions or manuscripts of areas where Rabbi Leiter was working. For instance, on the Rokeach, the Marie Calonne, etc. In addition, he would send Rabbi Leiter some of his learned monographs that he gave out. He was very much a tremendous scholar. All of these people, by the way, that I've mentioned to you so far were Shomrei Mitzvahs. They were affiliated with institutions that were not Orthodox, but they worked there, did their work, tried to keep that kesher between the Jewish people and Jewish learning alive. That was very, very critically important at the time, especially for the American milieu, which was not made up of many, many yeshivas at all. Very few yeshivas at that time. Then there's Professor Chaim Chernovitz of the Jewish Institute of Religion in New York. He was an amazing individual. He wrote a work, several volumes, Toldot HaPoskim, in which he goes through the various greats in Psak, going back to the early Poskim. He was an exceptionally learned Gaonish person, but he had sunk his roots into various institutes of academia and got them to appreciate the richness of the Jewish religion in terms of its scholarly import, not only for Jews, but for the entire world. And he writes, after being acquainted with my father a bit through correspondence and probably meeting in New York, the founding of the Maimonides Institute pleases me very much, and that you, who combine Talmudical and secular learning, will direct it. The last person on this is Dr. Solomon B. Freehoff. Perhaps you can note that, perhaps you can see it. I will read to you what he had to say. He was the successor of the rabbi before him in the Road of Sholem Temple in Pittsburgh, which boasted almost 3,000 members. Okay? Rabbi, we read a letter to you the other day. The Rabbi Samuel Goldenson, who was very instrumental in helping Rabbi Leiter, together with Rabbi Meir Shapiro, back in 1927, when Rabbi Leiter was a young man of 35, to go around and get support for the yeshiva of Lublin that Rabbi Meir Shapiro wanted to build in Galicia and put out really big, major Talmidei Chachomim, some of them, many of them, greats in the Jewish panorama of learning and scholarship.